how should you think, how should you feel, in a sense, response to your feeling. It's 2 chapters just on how you regulate your emotional responses to events in life, right? Because he knew, he was a very practical man. He says, everybody's afflicted with all these real stuff from moment to moment to moment.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. It is with a sad heart that I share with you one of the luminaries in our field, Steve Clavey, passed away last week. Steve was a quiet giant in the field of Chinese medicine. You'll find his names on books like Fluid Physiology and Pathology in Chinese Medicine, a book I like to think of as the classic of fluids. He contributed substantially to the 3rd edition of Eastland Press's Materia Medica. He mentored students and was a dedicated and a skilled clinician. You'll find Steve's steady hand in the curation of 20 Years of the Lantern, a publication that was truly a beacon for those of us who wanted to learn more about Chinese medicine on its own terms. You'll hear his voice on the Fat Monk podcast and enjoy his playful, creative mind in the Chronicles of Mallory Chen. I had the extraordinary good fortune to be a student at SIOM in the mid-90s when he came and spent a few weeks with us. I remember a weekend workshop, a special series of lectures, an opportunity to observe him treat patients in the herbal clinic, and he supervised us as we did our internship rounds. There is the what he taught, but beyond that, the how he was in clinic and with us as students. He showed us something of the practical magic of Chinese medicine. He sparked something for me that I carried today as a flame. Over the years, his encouragement and editing helped me to take my rough Chinese and polish it into something publishable. He had a knack for dropping a potent hint as a question or observation. Steve, in my experience, was dogged, but not dogmatic. He had a way of inclusively engaging the depth and breadth of Chinese medicine without ascribing to any particular lineage or school of thought. He had a keen insight into human nature that, unlike many, did not turn him bitter or angry. He had an intellect that helped to illuminate, not dominate. I always came away from an encounter with Steve feeling encouraged and challenged. Not the challenge of looking for a fight, but the challenge to take what is still rough or murky and bring it into a more polished clarity. He was deeply generous with his time and knowledge. I am grateful for the time I've had when our paths intersected as we wound our way through the forest of medicine. In Yiddish, we'd call Steve a mensch. In Chinese, you'd call him a zhenren. I have had the extraordinary good fortune to consider him a friend. Perhaps for the rest of my days, I will hear his voice encouraging me to keep at it with the phrase, well, let's use our Chinese medicine thinking and see what we find. In our modern moment, there is a strong push toward integrated medicine. To be capable of explaining ourselves in Western reductionist science-y terms, all well and good. I'm, after all, a fan of the scientific method. But there is more to understanding our world. There are plenty of ways of knowing that help us to understand what's important and how to live a healthy, engaged, and fruitful life. In this conversation with Sabine Wilms and Leo Locke, we discuss Xing, the nourishing your nature practices of Sun Si Miao. Xing, yeah, you heard that right. Not Yang, nourishing life, but Xing, nourishing your nature. How are these different? We're going to find out in a moment, right after a few words from the people who have some solutions to some of your clinical challenges. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear-Don't-Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit AccuFastNeedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Sabine Wilms, Leo Locke, welcome back to Qiological. I got both of you at the same time.
It is an absolute pleasure, dear Michael.
And thank you for having us.
Well, you guys always have something interesting that you're thinking about, or looking at, or writing about, or helping other people with, or in this case, putting on. You guys are doing a big old, it's not really a class. I'm not even going to call it a course. I don't know what to call it, but I know this. It goes for a few months. That's unusual. And it's on Sun Si Miao's Xing, not Sheng, Nourishing Life. We always hear about Sheng. Important, useful. Xing. Xing is in nature, nourishing nature. I suspect many people have no idea what we're talking about here right now. Leo, could you give us a little glimpse? Xing, Sheng, 有这么不同? How are they different?
I think I would invite Sabine to start because she seems to have the very best way to speak of it.
Oh, really?
Well played, Leo Locke. Well played.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I gave a talk about this very topic in Korea at a conference on East Asian medicine maybe 10 years ago. And there were very, very famous, very well established medical historians from China in the room, like my heroes, my absolute heroes, very, very famous people who know a million times more than I do. And after my talk, they pulled me aside. We were touring some temple or something, and they were like, "It's the same thing. What the heck are you talking about?" So there's disagreement on this, and there are people in all fields who would argue Yangsheng and Yangxing are the same. And I feel very strongly that they're not. And all we have to do is look at the texts. Or at least they are sometimes used interchangeably. But when we look at Sun Si Miao's chapter, it is not about nurturing life or nurturing sprouting. It's not about promoting physical health, but it is also about promoting emotional and spiritual health. So there's a dimension of longevity moving into immortality. There is a religious and a moral, there's a Buddhist and a Confucian dimension to it, and a Taoist dimension that goes far beyond medical context. But it's all medicine, right? What is medicine? What is it that you're healing? And the body, everything is chi. So the physical body is so connected to the emotional body, which we know from Chinese medicine, right? Most people get that. But what Sun Si Miao, I believe, spells out, and I think, Leo, we've been working on this for weeks or months now, that emotional and physical health is rooted in an ability to align with the Tao, to be in a state of stillness and equanimity, of moderation, of what we talk about with this sweet spot in between yin and yang, in between heaven and earth, in between being these spirit entities and living in a human body. I don't know. Okay, I'm passing the baton back to you, Leo.
Yeah, I would say in between stillness and movement, right? Sun Si Miao is at once very philosophical sometimes, but also deeply in the details of daily living. That's what's so impressive and so unique about his offering, is he blends the yin and yang, the detail and the general so well together, like they're never separate in the first place, right? He has so many, for example, details about the guidance of how to respond and deal with our emotional life. And at the same time, he spent a whole paragraph or several paragraphs on just to take care of your living space, your house, so that there's not seams that let the winds come through, right? And how that would affect your health. So for me, from the standpoint of a clinician, that is very helpful and very detailed, and something that is immediately applicable to the practice of the medicine, right? A day-to-day encounter. For example, I can think of, if I may go into a little case that I had years ago. Actually, this is a patient of another colleague. He came to me because he said, "Oh, this woman has been through several practitioners, and she came to me, and her problem just keeps coming back, despite the fact that I know between all of us we're pretty good at treating pain. But her pain just kept coming back, and then we treated it, and then it disappeared, and then it came back again. So we're at a complete loss as to why her problems, is it because keeps recurring? Is it because our herbal approach, our acupuncture approach, what's going on? Is it dietary, right?" I looked at that and I said, you guys did an amazing job. I really cannot find fault with any of your dietary advice or acupuncture or herbal medicine. But there's a dimension that we haven't explored, is which side of the bed she sleeps on and how open are her windows when she was asleep. So, we never asked that. So they went back and asked it, and sure enough, she slept on the side of the bed where the windows are open at night because it was too hot for her husband. So I said, well, they have the switch. They did the switch, and she slept on the other side. They closed the window a little bit more, and that fixed the problem. Right? That type of detail.
And on the other hand, can I give you another example? I went to the chiropractor 2 days ago. I've been dealing with the dislocated rib for 2.5 months. Extremely painful. I've been getting massages. I keep having, like Daniel Altschuler has popped it in, 5-minute treatment, and needled me a few times when he happens to be out here. He fixes me. It keeps popping back out. So I went to this chiropractor who is not just a chiropractor. He's a healer like you, both of you. So he was like, oh yeah, I'll structurally align you. I can see why your rib keeps popping out, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, but it'll keep doing this thing. It's your liver. Your liver is about to blow up. And I'm just like, oh, wow. And then, I'm like, okay, I'm going to the grocery store. I'm buying liver. And he's like, go swimming every day. Michael, I get to go swimming every day in the open water. But ultimately, it's way, way, way deeper than even replenishing my liver. And that's what I love.
Well, because it's not necessarily the physical liver.
Yes. And it's even deeper than the 5 elements and then the physical liver. And this is where Leo has been helping me so much. It's about that Buddhist perspective of how to live in a human body and to be in a human realm and navigate human challenges with people we have to interact with our histories, with our epigenetic stuff, with our karmic baggage. And Sun Si Miao talks about all this stuff. He talks about, dietetic. He talks about every single level on this spectrum, from the really, really plain, like don't sleep with your neck exposed to the wind, to the dietetics, to living in harmony with the seasons, to moderating your emotions, don't overwork too much, regularity, blah, 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 to virtuous actions and to what it does, the importance, and he has Qigong in there and breathing exercises and everything else. And then he talks about the cumulative effect of the tiny actions in your life, like whether I choose to, this is Sabine speaking now. I learned this from my Buddhist nun friends when I was in my 20s in graduate school, where you don't smush a cockroach. You don't kill a cockroach. Like that conscious act of not killing a living being, which is a tough thing to do when you live in downtown Tucson in a bad apartment where the cockroaches are all over. It's like this whole range of how you are in the world, from the really mundane to this deep spiritual ability to just be still.
Yeah, so I want to interject here, and I got a couple of questions, because we are living here in the world. Tiandi Ren, we're women should Ren, right? We're the people. We're living between heaven with its mandates, oneness and potential, and the earth, this kind of mud ball of all these divisions and differences, the 10,000 things. And yes, we can have these aspirations. We can live this Yangsheng or Yangxing life. But look, if you're living in a crappy part of town and you got a bunch of cockroaches and they're getting into your food, I'm thinking, get rid of the damn cockroaches, right? At a certain level, living as a person on the earth, dealing with the earthly realm, cockroaches are not great to have in your food. That's going to take your health in a bad direction, especially if they're carrying disease. So I'm with you. And I get it. Part of what draws me into the work is the philosophy, is the idea that we can live in this fuller way, embodied in spirit and body and emotion, physicality, all of it. But if you need to kill some damn cockroaches on behalf of your health, maybe that's not such a bad thing to do.
Absolutely. And remember, the title of Sun Si Miao's volume is Xing, is nurturing your Xing, your who you truly are. So return, regardless of where you live, how many cockroaches, deal with your cockroaches, however you have to, but come back to nurturing your Xing so that the cockroaches won't throw you off your track, because we're all here. You mentioned Ming. We're all here. We each have lots of gifts that we're here to manifest, to bring to the world. And our Xing is our. I love hanging out with little kids. I got to dance with a little 2-year-old kid last night in the park. It's like you look at the way kids are present in the world, and our habitual stuff covers that Xing. This is where I think the Taoist perspective comes in. That Zhenren, the Zhen, the true, the genuine, the perfect. It's the perfected that comes from the origin. So the cockroaches are there, but how do I let the cockroaches affect me?
Or what about this? I'm thinking about nourishing our nature. Maybe there's parts of myself, of my life, that I'm not living up to. Because I'm not living up to my certain potentials. I'm living in a crappy part of town. I have lived in crappy parts of town, let me tell you, with cockroaches, in weird neighbors, and like hypervigilant on the street, coming home, get into your house, lock the door. I've been there. I get it. I know it. One of my thoughts was, well, I could just be above all that and live here. And the other thought was, I can do better than this. So I'm curious about that aspect as well of nourishing our nature, of recognizing, you know what? Falling short here. And not someone else telling me I'm falling short. Me recognizing I could do better. Where's a good start? Clean things up, live in non-cockroachville. I'm wondering what Sun Si Miao has to say about that.
Leo, you've been my teacher on this for the last month.
Yeah, I think Sun Si Miao is focused on, for me, that would be the aspect of practicality he will focus on. Yeah, he's a very practical guy in that sense, right? He's at once very aspirational, but at the same, that's why he took time in all the passages. That's why this course is so long, because it has all these minute detail to the lowest level of guidance on everything, or not everything, many things of a human life, right? Again, go back to, watch out for the seams in the walls. If you drink tea this way, after you ate this, you don't do this. After eating, you go walk how many steps. When you have sex, you do this, but you don't do that. Right? There's an entire long chapter on sexual cultivation. Right? There's guidance, not hard line guidance. He gave the guidance, and he would tell you why a lot of times in a generalized discussion of why are we doing all this, right? But the theme always comes back to not too much to the left, not too much to the right. In all realms, in the emotions, in the eating of the food, right? So I remember there's a passage that I read about how he included this astute observation about the people in Guangzhou, I think a region of China. He says this group of people seems to eat a lot less. They're kind of thrifty, and then they don't eat a lot. And they seems to be the healthiest. But then there's the other group of people who gets to eat well all the time, the best food, they're the aristocrats and everything. They seem to be the one that falls ill all the time and live a really short life. In what Sun Si Miao can observe in his lifetime. He says, actually, it's not Sun Si Miao, it's another contemporary of his, Xi, and a very famous philosopher and scholar of the time. And then he goes into the explanation, why is that so? Why is the well-fed connoisseur so easily fallen ills, right? And then why is the people who are thrifty and eating simply are the ones that thrive and are quite healthy? Because that reminds me of my Tibetan friends. They told me, back in the days before Tibet developed, all they ate is the Tibetan barley, the yak butter, and the tea. That's their main thing. They didn't eat much of vegetables or any fancy stuff that lowland Chinese people ate. But they survived for centuries and millennia, and strong.
Oh, good. I'm off the hook with my goat milk tea.
Yeah, so Sun Si Miao goes into that type of discussions about these very astute observations about how people were doing during his time.
That's a curious thing, Leo. I mean, barley, yak milk, tea as your main staples. That seems like a very limited diet in an animal that really thrives on variety. Humans love variety, and we seem to, well, number one, it's interesting and we like it, but it seems generally that we need variety to be healthy. Help me understand how that even makes sense. That'd be like, well, I'm going to drink butter in my coffee and peanut butter sandwiches, and that's my diet.
Look, that's what kind of the fun part about this program. We'll go really, really deep into exploring that. Sun Si Miao said it very beautifully, I think. He says, if we look around, we see a lot of people who would eat really well and who would take these special medicines, right? Which is really relevant to our modern life. These days we have these superfoods. This is now the trend, superfoods, right? Superfood is everywhere. So in Sun Si Miao's time, there was also superfood too, Yao Er. The Taoist cultivators have produced a lot of these recipes for immortality and longevity. He says, I saw a lot of people taking these pills also. And we have also seen a lot of people doing all these yogic exercises, the breathing exercises, da. He says, I see them all. But yet, these people don't seem to do that much better than the other people who don't do so much of it.
Wow. So speaking in some ways to a situation very similar to our present day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of this. It's completely relevant. It's exactly the same thing.
Right? It's the same thing with the sexual cultivation. In our modern era, as we speak, right, and in the past 20, 30 years, all these so-called sexual cultivation techniques and Qigong and Indian yogic stuff has come up and become more and more popular and being remade every decade and renamed and rebranded every decade. But the substance of it never changed. It sounds just like back in Tang Dynasty. It's exactly the same things repackaged. And Sun Si Miao says, why are they not successful? Instead, harming their lives and their Xing and their health. Then he goes into this great explanation as to why. There's something even more fundamental than all of these techniques and all of these recipes. There's something else that needs to happen before all of these can be helpful. If you don't do the fundamental stuff, forget about it. That's what he says. It's not going to work.
And at the same time, he gives you a whole volume on dietetics, and he gives you a bunch of specific formulas for immortality foods. So he gives you the medicinal, the alchemical recipes. That's part of the volume. And then he says, you can take all the fancy pills in the world. You're not going to succeed if you are not paying attention to this other thing. Like, that's the beauty. It's the yin and the yang.
Let me see if I'm tracking this a bit. Because on one hand, what I'm hearing is, Sun Si Miao, amazingly accomplished practitioner and, beyond that, human being. So he's got some good stuff to say.
He lived a long life. That's kind of, technically speaking, that's what we know. Yeah. much longer than most of his contemporaries, according to legend.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. So I want to come back to the food thing for a moment, because it's kind of sticking in my craw for some reason, no pun intended. You got these people that are living remotely, they're poor, they don't have much in the way of resources. So they got some stuff that fills their belly and kind of gets them through their life. They're not expecting a whole lot more than that. Is there something here about the expectations that we carry that, if you're living a simple life and you don't have much, then you do with what you got. And you kind of are okay with doing with what you got, because that's what you do. You do with what you got. And if you've got more different kinds of food, maybe the capacity to get it, or maybe you don't have the capacity to get it, either way, now that's adding some turbulence, into the system, so to speak, because, I could have these different foods. Which ones do I want? Which ones should I eat? Which ones will give me immortality? Which ones will make me well? And now we've got all this mental, emotional noise going on as well. I mean, is this a piece of it? Is this what Sun Si Miao is saying, that the noise in our head?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's at least two chapters that goes into that detail about how you regulate your emotions and your responses to events in life. And that's a huge part of that's part of the thing that's beyond the usual Yang we talk about, Xing. How do we learn and how do we modulate our responses to life's ups and downs? That's the juice of it. It says, if you don't take care of that, I don't care how many immortality pills and recipes you do, it's not gonna work, because that ups and downs of emotionality and to life's responses is so big and influential on our health that it can negate many of the other things.
And I think when you think about Xing, the meaning of Xing is the inherent nature. Whales, certain species of whales. I'm looking out at the sound right now, and sometimes the whales go by, and the whales do their thing, and certain whales live more than 100 years. My puppy, my dog, each species has their Xing, and they have an allotted lifespan. And the traditional thinking is that the human lifespan is really much, much longer than we ordinarily think, because we mess with it, because of all these habits that cloud our, if you want to call it your heavenly nature, that's the Wang Fengyi teaching. We interfere with being in our nature and expressing our nature. So there are certain people who love living in the city, and maybe they can put up with the cockroaches. My Xing is, I need quiet and stillness, and I need nature, and I thrive by going swimming in the Sound, in cold water. Michael, you've visited me. I've tried to get you to go swimming with me. It's not your Xing. Can we talk about you?
Puget Sound? No way.
So, Michael, look at what you just did with your Chautauqua. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly.
You did pronounce it correct.
Good. And this is maybe the tension between Xing and Ming, which I haven't quite figured out. But ultimately, when you're Xing and you're Ming, your inherent nature, the way you are at the core of your being, blends with your Ming when you figured out your calling in life, your special gifts. And when those match, that's what we're going for. That's health and ease and flow and shun, right? Going along with the current where you're not fighting the current. Like my daughter is 26 and she's really struggling.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I love that idea, right? These things line up. Oh, now, Shun Li, right? It's just, now you go with the flow, or everything's going to be good because my Ming and my Xing and my stars and this and that, it's all aligned and I'm in harmony. It sounds great. It sounds so great. I have an issue with it. I'm hoping you guys can help me with this, okay? It's not that I'm a naysayer, but maybe I am. At least for me, I've had this idea that if I'm like, quote, doing it right, then life is going to be easier for me. I don't think so. I have actually found that when I'm following things in a particular kind of way, life is harder. It's more challenging, in some ways more difficult, bigger problems to solve, and way more interesting. And that is nourishing. It's not super shun. It's not like, hey, groovy, man, I'm like doing my thing. Everything's fine. I'm in alignment. It's like I'm in alignment and I almost got run over by a motorcycle.
But look what you're doing. I mean, your life is so complex. It's so challenging. You are working so hard. But look, like the chautauqua that you just pulled together. That is you using your unique gifts. That is you.
Does not mean it's easy.
No, it's not supposed to be easy. We're not talking about easy. But you were riding that. I mean, look what you just did in bringing all these people together. That's being in alignment with the Tao.
And it's not easy. And Sun Si Miao pointed it out very clearly in all of his writings. If it is that easy, he wouldn't have written so much. If it is not that flow, he wouldn't have written all that detailed advice and analysis of what to do when this happens, because life is complex and life has many, many challenges from moment to moment, things that we can't even see. Sun Si Miao listed it out. That's how detailed he was. How you should be facing, how you should be sitting, how you should build your house, how should you eat, how should you have sex, how should you think, how should you feel, in a sense, response to your feeling. It's 2 chapters just on how you regulate your emotional responses to events in life, right? Because he knew, he was a very practical man. He says, everybody's afflicted with all these real stuff from moment to moment to moment. That is the reality of the human life. And we cannot speak in general philosophical and aspirational about it, and that's it. That's why he wrote down line by line, word by word, phrase by phrase, for almost every of the situation you can think of. It's like, what do you do there? What do you do there? Right? That to me, that is the deepest and most sincere and honest recognition of life challenges and the detailed skill and facility we need. Not this beautiful, there could be this beautiful, but at the same time, this tuning into this beautiful, amorphous flow of life, but not this just feeling good thing. It's by having a very skilled response, discerning response to these challenges.
I appreciate that, Leo. Skilled response, discerning response. That rings a bell for me. That really sounds right.
Sun Si Miao is about these skill sets. He's not this flowing Taoist that floats midair. He goes into every minute. That's why we need 3 months, because there's so many things to cover. And every time I was on the bus today and I read it, and I was like, wow, I remember this. He said this 1,500 years ago. I just remember the case in my clinic 5 years ago that exactly matched that advice. And then the next one. And I thought, oh, that's kind of my uncle. Oh, that's that guy. Right? Because he's so observant. Because he lived in kind of a privileged life in his social circle. He was kind of, from the upper class, as Sabine will tell us later in the program, of his background. He's not the average guy. He lived a good life. He's from a good class in society. And he saw all these people who really indulged themselves on one hand, and how challenging that was to their health. Because I had a case way back, which is so resonating with what Sun Si Miao observed. There was this man who was struggling with diabetes. And how he got that was when he was growing up, he grew up really poor. So he didn't get to eat good food, enjoyable food. So I think when he was younger, he vowed to himself he's going to better himself. Right? So then he went and started his career, and he was in some part of like Papua New Guinea at the time, working with clearing some forests, doing timber business. He was in the boonies for a decade. And then finally he made his first pot of gold. He returned home and he started indulging himself with all the food that he could afford.
All the things he couldn't have before, all the things he's worked so diligently to acquire, now I'm going to enjoy it.
Right? In retrospect, he overdid it and he had his feet amputated because of diabetic complications, and he eventually passed away. And his wife told me that was exactly what happened. He couldn't resolve that lack of need, and he refused to give up his delicacies and that will compensate for his lack until the day he passed away.
It's so interesting. I've had patients who grew up in very poor circumstances. I'm thinking of one in particular. He's had a number of different businesses. He's always been his own. He's pulled himself up by his bootstraps, basically. And he enjoys the good things in life. He doesn't overindulge in them. He enjoys them. He doesn't overenjoy them. Whenever I think of this guy, he's kind of in my pantheon of like people that are healthy, because he had the ability to take himself out of a bad situation and not let that dictate the rest of his life. Other than that, he took himself up to a higher level, which in turn allowed him to be more helpful to other people. Really extraordinary. And then there's the people that didn't have much, and they end up like the person you just talked about. Now I've got it, and man, I'm going to make sure that I enjoy every second of it, even until it kills me. And then you got the people who didn't have much. They still don't have much. They're deeply, deeply, deeply in debt because they want to feel like they do, but they keep getting further away from it. So there's all these different responses to something that was a lack.
Yeah. And the first one that you talk about, this wonderful, admirable patient of yours that came out in the wealth but did not overindulge, I would say that would be the poster boy for Sun Si Miao's teaching. That is the ideal that Sun Si Miao is aiming for in some ways. Yeah, the perfect exemplification of what his teaching is in that respect.
And he enjoys his life. I mean, he doesn't hold back from enjoying it.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, the sweet spot. Sun Si Miao is about the sweet spot.
It's the sweet spot. We keep coming back. Every conversation Leo and I have, we always keep coming back to the sweet spot between this and that.
Within the two polarities.
Yeah. Whatever those polarities, whether it's stillness and movement, richness and poverty, hot and cold, yin and yang, heaven and earth, being the spiritual being and being like
the physical animal.
It's all about the sweet spot between Confucian doing your good deeds. I mean, there's a whole chapter in there about the importance of good deeds, of virtuous actions. Like, is a huge virtue potency. However you want to define that's a huge aspect of this chapter of Xing, which is another thing that Yangshan people never talk about, virtue, right? Confucianism has no room in our standard Chinese medicine discussions of Yangshan. It's all about the physical body and maybe the emotional body, because the emotions and the physical body are interconnected because it's all chi. But the value of doing good deeds, of the millions of little daily actions that you take as you, I don't know, greet your wife and feed your cat and say hi to the neighbor and, smile at the lady at the grocery store. That's Yangsheng too.
So it's in all the small moments of life.
And every moment matters.
And not just that, because that's kind of the contemporary, discourse. So Si Miao goes way deeper and beyond that. Is how is your emotional response? Where is your heart and mind at that moment of action? And you got to watch out for that too. If the response to that action is too far to one side, then you have to regulate it again. So that the flow, to get that flow, is a meticulous life planning and habit. It's not just this, I'm just going to lounge, I'm just going to sleep, lie down on the beach, that kind of thing. It's this moment to moment, discerning, skillful, measured response.
Okay, I get it, Leo, and I'm with you. Moment to moment, assessing, recalibrating. Here's where it goes and glitches for me. As Westerners, we are so damn over-involved in our emotions. We are so constantly narcissistically looking inward. I'm going to do all this good stuff and I got all this focus on me. It's like there's so damn much focus that people have on themselves already. And it doesn't look like it's being all that helpful. So help me out here. How's this help?
Michael, let me jump in. So that's the sweet spot. So Leo just gave you one sweet spot. I'll give you the other sweet spot. Surfing. Sailing. You're a sailor. What Leo just gave you was, when you're sailing, the minute adjustments to the sail, to the wind, to the currents, boom, 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 how you're steering. When you're surfing, there's all the micro adjustments on your movement as you're standing on the surfboard. That's what Leo was talking about. The other aspect of the sweet spot is you're surfing, is the play, the joy, when you're in the moment, woo, you're flying.
And I so appreciate that you brought that up, because it's so interesting that as different people, when listening to the same statements, will have will conjure up different sort of ideas for what that meant, right? And I appreciate what Sabine just said, because to the ancient or the pre-modern Chinese, that is part of it too. It's not all this, when we're talking about monitoring these responses, it's both internally monitoring and outwardly monitoring as well. It's not this collapse and concentration on just what I feel. It's also open to the world. It is neither this nor that. It's a kind of all-weather, full spectrum, 360 degrees inside and outward, simultaneous monitoring, which is very different from what you were describing earlier, the glitches, right? It's not just this collapsing I, how I feel, I'm angry, No, that's a folding in. So Si Miao is talking about this inward and then simultaneously outward orientation that's maintained at the same time. It's interesting how the human awareness, the shape and the density and the direction of the human awareness have shifted throughout times. And in the modern days, it's so inwardly identity focused. Whereas I think in other times, other societies, it's not shaped like that at all.
I've heard a theory put forth that every 80 years there's a pendulum that swings between the me and the we. And it's an 80-year cycle. You get to an ultimate me, and it's a very narcissistic kind of thing. You get to the ultimate we, it becomes extremely tribal.
Navigating
it, yeah.
The sweet spot, the dynamic the sweet spot is dynamic. It needs to be reassessed.
And we need both, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the beauty of Sun Si Miao.
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital qi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
Well, there's the me, and then there's the we as the tribal, and then there's the cosmic. And I think that's maybe what we're missing these days. That's the part that strikes me so profoundly about Sun Si Miao's message, is that there's a dimension beyond the physical body and the social body and the body politic, and even the natural body that we live in, as in the natural environment. But there's this cosmic dimension to it.
Tell me more about that.
Please, Leo.
We shall reserve that for people who join the program.
Oh, you got to give me a little something here. Here's why you need to give me a little something. Middle of the country, Michael Max. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. Right. I'm kind of a redneck when you come right down to it. So when I hear cosmic, right, there's a part of me that's tapping my foot going, what are these people talking about? Right. At the same time, I practice Chinese medicine, and, the world is incredibly mysterious to me. Very, very strange, which is wonderful. But whenever it's like whenever I hear that word cosmic, it's like when I hear the word immortal, like, oh yeah, the immortality formulas. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? So can you give me just, like, for the folks here in the middle of the country, we need a little bit of, meat and potatoes.
How about doing Qigong? How about when you're breathing in and you're breathing out and you're standing there? How about, because I think to a certain extent it's beyond words. I think there is a level of this conversation that cannot be expressed in rational words, because words are a human creation, and it's the rational mind, and there is a level of embodied experience that words just, there's an end to what words can do. But everybody, your listeners...
Do they?
I don't know.
How many of my my listeners practice Qigong? I don't know. I mean, we talk about it. We think we should. Well, I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. I better practice some Qigong or Tai Chi but do people really? How much do we do it?
Well, but you've all learned how to experience Qi in a way that goes beyond breath.
Have we?
Oh.
Look, a lot of the educational programs right now are teaching more about integrated medicine than they are the Chinese medicine pulse. I don't know what people are learning in schools. I'm not part of that world, so I probably shouldn't even talk too much about it. But I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just going to take me as an example. Busy practitioner, run a podcast, have a family, try to have some fun. How often do I do Qigong? Not too often, because I'd rather go sailing.
Okay, but you go sailing. Leo and I, we're on the same page.
You
here.
go ahead.
You go sailing. You go sailing.
Yes, I do.
Right there, you experience that instant of being present and being one with the universe.
Otherwise, you go swimming when you don't want to.
You go for a walk. Sometimes you give me a call when you're walking from your clinic to the grocery store or something, and you stop and you smell a flower. Your cat wakes you up and you open your eyes, and your happy cat looks at you.
No, hungry cat, I'm happy. I like the cat.
No, I'm not doing a good job. Okay, Leo, you try.
No, I get it. I think what I hear you saying, Sabina, is that there are moments, and there are the moments where you go, "Oh, I'm alive and this is great," right? Or I'm alive and this really sucks. And what can I do about that? Or I'm alive. I think for me, it comes back to, I'm alive. Look at this. Something like that. Is this what you're getting to? Is this what you're aiming at?
What I'm aiming at is oneness with. This sounds really corny. I remember it was one of those things I learned when I was in high school in Iceland. Ein with öllu or something like that. It's Icelandic. It's one of the few phrases. It means one with everything. And I think it was used to order a burger. But it was like, it's for whatever. And I hope there's no Icelandic people listening to this podcast, but it stuck with me. And I think it's a universal thing. It's not a Chinese medicine thing. It's in every tradition in the world, this way of just breaking down the boundaries between us and existence. And that's the Xing, which is why I think this message from Sun Si Miao is perhaps even more relevant today than it was in the 7th century, because we have so many barriers between us and everything else, whether we're talking about air conditioning, climate control, screens. We live in a virtual world now. Just being one with everything, I think is the best way.
Okay, great. I was writing about this morning. I was actually writing about this in my writing practice this morning, right? Because I hear this phrase about we're all one, right? There's this call to unity. We're all one. How many times have you heard that we're all one, but it's used in a manipulative way? It's like we're all one, so you pay attention and listen to me. We're all one, and so change your behavior or change your thinking.
But think about the one when there's a forest fire. Like, I can feel the trees screaming. When I hear about the whales getting hit by these huge container ships, I think the younger generation, actually, there's hope, because the younger generation, I feel like there's a discourse right now in the younger generation where things are shifting.
I want to hear more about that in just a second. I want to finish my thought, but I want to hear more about this. So I'm sticking a pin in it. We're going to come back. Not just being an acupuncturist, but kind of. This thing about this call to unity, like all is one, that to me seems like a directive of heaven, the undifferentiated potential of heaven. And there's a reality that is that. I do not deny it. I understand we're connected to it. But, down here in the realm of the 10,000 things, in the world of differences, and thank God there's divisions, so there's differences, so there's different things, because it makes life really interesting. But to take that idea of we're all one, that heavenly idea, I don't want to use the word mandate, that gets in the way, but it's like all is one is a directive of heaven. But down on earth, we're not one. We're many different things. We're the 10,000 different things. And there's a place for that because it's the earth. And the earth is about all these different things. There's divisions. There's me, there's you, right? At one living go, yeah, we're all one. But if I walk up and step on your toes, it's going to be very clear that there's a you and a me because it's going to hurt your toes. So at the level of the earth, and we're these critters that live in between the two, which is why I think we so often get confused. But at the level of the earth, there's all these differences and divisions. And they're supposed to be. And we need to learn how to work with those. We need to learn how to resolve the conflicts that we've got, each of us for the good reasons that we've got them. That's an earth thing. And to go to the place of, well, it's all one, so, it'll be okay, I think it's a mistake in logical types. And I think it gets in the way of our development here on the earth. That's just me. I'm not Sun Si Miao. I'm wondering what Sun Si Miao has to say about that, though, because I have lived entirely too much of my life with that idea, well, we're all one, so it's going to work out. Guess what? Mostly it didn't, because I wasn't paying attention to the earthly things that needed attending to. So I want to know more about how Sun Si Miao is going to help me with my life here on the mud ball.
Join the program. then you get to see.
This is the sweet spot. Leo, you're the king of talking about the sweet. This is the kind of conversation. It's exactly that sweet spot between the two polarities.
Yeah. And that's the thing is many of the questions that Michael raised are not easy. They have no easy answers. They require nuanced and complex explanation and contextualizing, right? And that is the beauty of our program is we allow for that type of discussions, right? Sabine and I will talk about what we think, but in the live discussion that we'll have every week, that is the time for folks to participate and contribute like Michael just did. His perspective, his personal and clinical experience, and what he saw. Right? So that's why this program is precious, because we have space to facilitate that type of discussions. And I'm not going to give any categorical or definitive answer to what Michael just asked, because it is a complex thing. Sun Si Miao is multidimensional. He's not just this one thing. So in order to get to what is the stance of Sun Si Miao on that question, we need 3 months of gradual, detailed exploration on all aspects and dimension and the phases, whether teaching or collection of texts that he curated for us, so that we have a really well-rounded understanding of where he stands. I dare not and will not give a definitive answer, a categorical answer to Sun Si Miao's position on that. He's not that simple. He's very nuanced and very multidimensional. So I don't want to pick side. I want us to have the opportunity. Maybe we'll come back to your program again, Michael, after the 3 months of exploration with our participants and let you know what we found out.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think, Michael, you just put the basic question. That's what this is all about. And there is no answer. It's thinking about the sweet spot is all we can do, is holding that unknowing, holding that question.
For me, Michael's question is a boat that we can ride on and into the journey, the river of exploration, of exploring Sun Si Miao. I want to be totally honest. It's just not like I or Sabine and I are total experts on Sun Si Miao. We know enough to get us started on this journey of exploring his teaching. We just know enough. We know how to not let people fall into the water while on the boat. We know how to work with the sails and the winds. But we have not taken the full journey ourselves. And that's why we want this program as a collective effort of getting some people on the boat and exploring this journey.
Here's what I love about that. Here's what I love about what you just said. So often in our modern day, people are like me. It's like, well, what am I going to get? I'm paying some money and I'm giving you my time. That's valuable. So like, what am I going to get? What's the product here? We see this in education all the time. It's like, well, I'm going to get out of school. I'm going to have X, Y, Z. Well, I don't know. Did you apply yourself? Will you? You're not offering a product here. You're offering an exploration. You're setting off in a direction, but like the early voyages of exploration, you don't know where you're going to land. You know something about navigating the tides. You know something about reading the stars, many tools, and a good boat.
But there's more than that, right? Life and the journey is more than those. The entire experience. And yeah.
And it'll be fun.
Yeah, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, exploratory journeys are fun. You're a sailor.
Because so many times these programs can be a dull, fact-based. This is the A, B, C, D, E. This is the A1, A2, A2, A3, A4.
No,
we're offering something way more than that.
You're not going to have a Sun Si Miao power food shake in the morning for us to drink?
We're going to teach you how to make 10 different ones.
As long as you put love into it, as long as you drink it with happiness and love, it's okay. Whatever it is. No, not quite.
Yeah. And also, as you can tell already, Sabine and I don't agree on everything. So that's the beauty of it. How do we communicate? How do we discuss? How do we complement each other and not be adversarial and not feeling threatened by another's different viewpoint? Or try to just harmonize and say, oh, I agree. This is how I agree with you. But we can also say, hey, Sabina, on that point, I kind of disagree and I have a different experience. And we're not going to resolve it or harmonize it away.
Yeah, that whole thing about harmonize, I think it needs a redefinition, really. Maybe it's more like regulate than harmonize. Right? I used to think harmonization was, well, we're going to come together in the middle. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to kind of agree. It's all going to be a little kumbaya. But maybe it's agree to disagree. Like, I don't agree with that, and I still respect you.
But regulate is my red flag, because people always talk about menstrual regulation. And I'm like, no, it's yuqiao. It's fine tuning. It's finding that dynamic equilibrium. So regulation is not my thing. I think it's
Ping pong?
yes. We're putting you on the Yangxing board of the future Yangxing project.
But doesn't that kind of mean regulate or harmonize?
No, heck no.
We need to explore more of that. That could be another podcast.
We could do a whole podcast on ping pong, couldn't we?
Yeah, that's a big topic, right?
All right.
Or ping. In ancient medical texts, our earliest medical texts, they just use one word, ping.
Wow. Okay. When I'm talking to you two guys, I could go for hours. Okay. This thing starts in middle of September, right? 3 months?
September
11.
All right. We'll have some information on the show notes page if you all want to check it out. Anything else you guys want to share before we wind it down for today?
Come and have fun with us.
And thank you, Michael. Thank you for this conversation, because every conversation with you, I feel like you are such a wonderful human, and you have such an amazing ability to inquire with an open mind.
I'm a troublesome human, which is where my capacity for inquiry comes from.
I welcome that kind of inquiry.
It comes also from your playful curiosity and ability to sit without judgment.
I'm very judgmental. This is also partly why I do this, to try to be a little less so. I'm terribly judgmental.
In the language between Sabine and I always says, we're learning how to we're shifting from judgmental to discerning. Gradually become more discerning.
Maybe. I like the idea of discerning, but I'm also these days not so keen on throwing away my judgment just because it's supposedly a bad thing. It fuels a certain motivation to do what I do with the podcast. And so it has a place. So I'm trying to get a little friendly with it, and discernment is another way to say it, and it kind of nicens it up a little bit. But there's an edge to the judgment, and sometimes I need an edge because I'm usually kind of soft. So it actually serves me well. So in my character, in my Xing, there's a place for judgment. And judgment, well, look at this. I'm answering the question that I asked you earlier. Isn't that interesting?
See, isn't it cool?
Yeah, so there's an aspect of my character that I'm recognizing that I'm often judgmental about. Other people are certainly judgmental of my judgmental aspect. But there's a part of me that goes, yep, that's a piece of my character, and I wouldn't want to be without it. Maybe folks that take your journey will be able to friendly up with their unfriendly parts.
Beautiful.
We'll see. Let's check back in a few months.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Knowing our nature and realizing that others have natures perhaps quite different from ours, I think it helps to promote a respect for the fundamental differences that there can be between people. It's entirely too easy to make value judgments about good and bad, right and wrong, and there are places for those judgments. But in the clinic, we're there to help our patients and not use the golden rule of do unto others as you'd like to have them do unto you, but rather do unto others as they would like to be done unto. How to open yourself to your patient's nature so that you can best help them? I think that is part of the journey of becoming a skilled practitioner. It takes some time and experience and the recognition that patients can be very different from us, and starting with respect is probably a good place to begin. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.